Hi everyone, Leanne here from Jaded Blossom, and it is time for the June 2023 release hop. Hey, so I'm using Jaded Blossom's brand new Grilling with My Gnomies stamp set, along with the brand new Gnome Dies BBQ Add Ons. I'm also using Kawaii Foods Stamp set, Frank Salot Stamp set, Scalloped Rectangle dies, and Stitched Rectangle dies, and I'm using the Stitched Hexagon dies. Okay, so I've got two pieces of craft card, or not craft, it's Nina Desert Storm 80-pound cardstock cut at the size of an A2 size card base, so 4.25 by 5.5 inches. And I'm working on just a foam mat, and I'm doing some freehand stamping with an acrylic block and VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. So I'm going to stamp this hot dog all over the background of this paper. So working on my Stampin' Up! Pad as per usual. All my die cutting today was done with my Gemini machine. So I'm just quickly stamping this all over, trying to keep them all in the same direction. So I'm making my own background paper with this adorable little set. Kawaii Foods. It's perfect to go with our release, right? It's an oldie, but you can pull it out and use it. So this has been sped up to 2 times, just so you know. So just doing a little bit of stamping here. And it wasn't hard, I'm just trying to stagger the joints, kind of like bricks, right? And there we go. So it was very easy. And I'm going to do the exact same thing with this hamburger from the same set. So I'm going to stamp this all over the background. Now there's one that does smear a little bit, but I will cover it up with the rest of the design. So I'm just doing some stamping. Now, I did mention that I'm using the Stitch Hexagon dies. I've been told that those will be back in stock at in the Jaded Blossom store on June 23rd is when the company that they use to create their dies say that they'll be in their hot little hands. So keep an eye out if you want to get those stitched and scalloped hexagon dies. I believe they ordered the hexagon dies too, but whatever. I'm only using the stitched ones today. There we go. So just sort of, staggering this little burger. There we are. Now I'm going to do some not really coloring, and you'll see what I mean. I'm trying not to touch the ink because that is not a Copic friendly ink, and I'm just running a stripe through the center. I'm using Y17 for the mustard, and this is not really coloring. What this is basically just adding some highlighted color to my background. So I'm just running like the odd little, swipe of color. I'm also using, I think that's R29 for the red, sort of like it's ketchup. So I'm going to stagger those around. Doesn't have to be perfect, like I said. So I'm just doing some quick little swipes of color, trying not to touch that VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, because remember, that is not a Copic friendly ink. I find that it's easier to use like VersaFine Clair Nocturne if you're going to be doing stamping all over, like freehand stamping. A lot of the Copic friendly markers, you really have to use, something like a Misty, which is fine. But if you're doing like a whole background like this, it would take a lot of time to keep moving it and stamping it. You know what I mean? So that's why I did it this way. And that's why I'm not really doing a lot of coloring with these images, because I'm just sort of adding color here or there, trying not to touch the outline. So I am loving the new release, and hopefully you do too. There is a release and review video that went live today, so you can check that out. If you haven't seen me put together the new, Jaded Blossom barbecue gnome dies barbecue add-ons or BBQ add-ons, you could check me out like putting those together. There is a separate video for that. Now this is E13. I'm just adding swipes to the bottom of the bun. So just kind of fun. So like I said, there's a gnome video that was posted earlier. In the release and review, I will ink blend the 2 new stencils, and I also put together the new Build-A-Booth barbecue add-ons, so you can check that out as well. They're at the end of the release and review. So kind of fun, right? Just making sure I have them all. I'm going to do the same thing with, with the burgers. So I'm adding a little bit of darker brown. Let me see, what color is that? E17, just on where the burger patties are. And remember, this does not have to be perfect. This is just like swipes. This is like messy coloring. It's not really coloring. It's like messy adding lines of color, really. So this is a nice way to do this if you're not a fan of coloring, right? If you don't like to do blending, if you don't like the pressure of that, you can do this. This is very simple. I'm just adding this quick little line in. And like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. It kind of gives a really neat overall looking background, I find. So there we go. So now I'm pulling out the red again. That's R29. I'm just going to color in that top piece sort of like it's tomato, just a line. So like I said, this does not have to be rocket science. It does not have to be difficult. And people are going to love your cards because they're homemade. Now I'm pulling out the E13. I'm going to add some highlights, or not some highlights, some darkening color to the buns, sort of like I did with the hot dog. And I'll keep it the same on all of the different burgers, just to have a uniform kind of look. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it kind of gives a fun overall look. I'm going to highlight that bottom bun as well. See it, I'm not even, necessarily keeping it perfectly the same, but the same idea, right? Just making sure I have enough of those little highlights there. And I just love the, in the end, I think it turned out really cute. I'm going to use this again, I think, in a future video. I just think it was lots of fun. And, like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? So now I'm pulling out Y17 and I'm going to make that the cheese. And I'm just sort of scribbling in color there. Not really coloring it solidly, just scribbling. And like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. There we go. So yeah, I'm loving this new release. Jaded Blossom had to do this June release a little early just due to, holidays and what have you. So I know I gave you a little not a sneak peek, a little comment that there may be a little mini release coming towards the end of June. So you can keep your eyes out for that. It's just a mini one. But may I say it's awesome. So keep your eyes out for that. So now I'm using YG17 and I'm going to sort of scribble in the lettuce layer. And this does not, like I said, this does not have to be perfect, right? So I just think this turned out really awesome. And there we go. I think everybody, like all the different design team members, used this release differently, which is lots of fun. I'm not sure, I don't know if you know, but Cindy Beeland and we're both Canadians. So sometimes when it's release time, you guys know how awesome Jaded Blossom's, mailing department is. It's amazing. But the problem is that in Canada, we have to deal with Canada Post. And sometimes it takes forever for the release to come to us. And, through no fault of their own, sometimes we don't get our hands on it in time. So sometimes we have to get really creative in the earliest days of the release to kind of come up with something a little bit different. So we can just use a sentiment that we've been able to print and use on our cards. So that's why you'll see that sometimes I'm not using the dies in the beginning of the release. It's because they haven't made it into my hands. That's why the Gnome assembly video was a little bit late, just because as soon as the gnomes came to me, I quickly did, an assembly video for you and uploaded it to YouTube. So that's why. There we go. So now I'm adding a few little highlights with my Secure White Jelly Roll pen and a number 10. That's my favorite one. It's got like a nice white bold line. There we go. So isn't that fun? I just think it looks super cute. I added a couple highlights to the hot dogs, mustard and ketchup as well. And I decide to pull in that E17 again and just sort of highlight the little hot dogs on the ends just to add a little bit of color. And that's that. So my backgrounds are done. So I've created, well, almost done. I've created my neat little hot dog background for my card. So this is going to be my pattern paper, or my main pattern paper, right? So isn't that fun? So you can make your own pattern paper with these Kawaii stamps. So you'll see I'm trying to figure out a sentiment that I'm going to use on these two cards. And I'm trying to figure it out. What am I going to use? So this is what I've printed out. Sometimes this happens, you know, in the beginning of a release. I wasn't sure if I was going to get my hands on it in time for the hop. So I don't add some, you know, I add some fun supplies, you know, new supplies at the end. So there we go. I'm loving the backgrounds. I'm happy with them. And of course, I'm watching something on YouTube here, and I will move on and create my cards. Okay, so I went ahead and I pulled out Sunny Studios, Gingham Jewel Tones, and Amazing Argyle in 6-inch. And I'm cutting out my pattern paper, or the pattern paper I created with a stitched rectangle die, 3 3/4 by 5 inches. So I ran that through my Gemini machine. There we go. I did tape it down first so I didn't mess it up. Now my scalloped rectangles are 4 3/8 by 5 1/4 inches. There we go. And I know that I need like a buffer in between those. So I'm thinking about that as I'm creating here. So I'm going to stick that down and run my hot dog paper through. There we go. And I'll do the same with this Amazing Argyle paper. It's got like almost like a fun wood grain on the back. That's what I'm going to use. And like I said, I use the same sizes of rectangles and scalloped rectangles. And there you have it. So on the bottoms of these are going to go on the inside of my card. And I'm going to do some stamping with some VersaFine Clear Nocturne ink. So I'm going to stamp the burger on the green. There we go. And I'll stamp the hot dog on that Argyle. That's on the flip side of that wood grain from Sunny Studios. There we go. And I'm going to grab a couple of sentiments from the, what is it called there? Franks a Lot. That's the Franks a Lot stamp set. So this one is going to say Franks a Lot. And then this one is going to say Happy Berg Day, which is kind of fun, right? So it's a neat way to use these cards. There we go. And then I will use my Fiskars trimmer and trim a strip. So I want to cut off that little scrap piece. So whatever size is going to fit, that's where I'm going to trim it. I'm just trying to make sure that that little scallopy area is covered. And I will trim that off. And then that's the width that's going to go on the inside of my card. I'll do the same thing with this one. And it'll be a little bit skinnier, obviously, because, you know, hot dog, right? There we go. So those are going to go on the inside of my cards. So I've got Paper Tray Ink Craft Cardstock, 4.25 by 11, scored at 5.5 inches. There we go. And I'm using my Teflon bone folder, my Martha Stewart scoreboard. There we go. And I'm just going to crease that nice fold as well as I can. There we are. I'm going to add a piece of Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock, 4 by 5 1/4 inches to the inside. You know, obviously you could write in a pen in here and it would show up. I just like the look. So I'm going to do the same thing now. I'm going to add that little strip of paper to the bottom with that hamburger and the sentiment. There you have it. And then I'll trim off the overhang with a pair of scissors. I did use my ATG tape there, as you could see. There, and then I'll do the same thing to this one. Sometimes when you're making one card, it's easy enough just to make two, right? If you're using the same technique, the same stamp sets and all that, you can easily crank out two. There we go. I'll add that strip to the bottom, that little hot dog strip, again with my ATG tape. And then trim off the overhang with a pair of scissors again, like I said. There we go. So it's kind of fun, right? There you have it. So now on the fronts of these cards, I'm going to put together, you see there's some stamping on the back of that Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock. Remember, paper has two sides. So I'm going to add that down to a piece of black cardstock. That's American Crafts at 3 13/16 by 5 1/8. It's just slightly larger than the stitched rectangle that I used. And I just wanted to make it pop a little bit in between that and the pattern paper from Sunny Studios. And then I'm going to stick that down onto that scalloped rectangle with some ATG tape, trying to keep things straight, or as straight as I can. So I pulled yellow out of the mustard on the hot dogs for this one, and then the other one I pulled the green out of the lettuce on the hamburgers, is what I was going for. I'm going to stick that down on the front of my little card. There we go. So that's an A2 size card base. I'll do the exact same thing for this one. You'll see that there's some stamping on the back of this one. Remember, two sides, people. No one knows that but me and you, right? So I'm going to stick that down onto some American Crafts black cardstock. There we go. And remember, that's the same measurement that I gave you, 3 13/16 by 5 1/8, right, for the black. 3 3/4 by 5 inches is the stitched rectangle, and 4 3/8 by 5 1/4 is the scalloped rectangle. There we go. And then I will stick that down on the front of the other card base with some ATG tape. There we go. And I think that this neat coloring really turned out well, don't you? Lots of fun. And I am probably messing with my YouTube, or not my YouTube, with a video. So now I'm pulling out YR18, and I'm just going to add in some scribbles onto that last little piece of melting whatever it is. Sauce, whatever, darker cheese. It can be anything you want. And I'm trying not to touch that, the outline. And remember, this does not have to be perfect. The rest of it is not perfect. I'm just filling it in without touching the line, or at least trying not to touch the line. Isn't that fun? So there we go. Now I'm going to pull out our mini tag dies 3. They're kind of my favorite from Jaded Blossom. They're great. And I'm going to cut out these sentiments with them. I just think it's fun. And then I'm going to cut out the shadow layer for them out of the same cardstock. But I'm using the other side for the gingham, right? Here we go. And remember, I always tape down my die when I'm trying to line it up. And I do cut the wrong one of this little slanted edge die. I cut the wrong one a couple of times. I don't know. I was having a time of it. I'm not sure what I was doing. This Thank You Very Much was pretty easy, right? There we go. I will line that up. And then this one, I'm going to try and stick it down, and I realize, crap on a cracker, it was the wrong one. So I had to cut it out again. I didn't show you, but I cut it out 3 times, if you can believe it. I kept messing up. Okay, so I'm just going to lay those down. That's where they're going to end up. I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with this. Now I'm pulling out the Hexagon dies and the Gnome dies BBQ Add Ons. And I'm going to put together the little hot dog and the little hamburger from that set. So I am using some art glitter glue, and I'm adding on a strip of lemon tart cardstock from Paper Tray Ink. This is American Crafts Rust. And then the base is Paper Tray Ink Craft cardstock is the bun. There we go. Using my reverse tweezers, like I said, art glitter glue. And I'm just layering it all up. So I've got a little hot dog now. I'll weight that down. And now I'll put together my little hamburger cut out of Paper Tray Ink Craft cardstock. Remember, you want to start at the bottom and build up with this one. Everything lines up perfectly when you do it like that. And then the meat layer was that American Crafts Rust cardstock. The green is Paper Tray Ink New Leaf. And then the bun is Paper Tray Ink Craft cardstock. Nice thick cardstock. I love that. So I'm going to weight those down. Now I went ahead and I cut out this Hexagon die. The width of it, the perpendicular lines on that, the width is 1 3/4 inches, just so you know. So I'm going to stick that down, add a little bit of glue behind that hexagon. That was cut out of paper terrain black cardstock. And I'm going to pop up this adorable little hamburger on the front of this hexagon. I find that it'll make it pop against the background a little bit. There we go. And I will trim off the overhang of that mini tag dies 3 with a pair of scissors. There we go. And I'm going to pull out Doodlebugs. What are these called? Where did I write it? Eye candy. So they're little eyeballs. Remember, you could use Google Eyes. I'm choosing to use these funny little eyeballs. And I'm going to do the same thing with this little hot dog card. Now, the funny thing is, check out that hamburger card. Does it not remind you of Mayor McCheese from McDonald's? I don't know. Am I aging myself, people? Do you remember the Mayor McCheese with the kind of goofy googly eyes? It kind of reminds me of the Mayor McCheese. I don't know why. I put those Google eyes or those little eyeballs on and I thought, oh my God, it's Mayor McCheese. How funny is that? Okay, now I'm adding on my little hot dog. Isn't that sweet? And I'm going to choose 2 little eyeballs from the same set, because why not? I'm using my pen blade to pick them up. There we go. Isn't that cute? So darn cute. And now I'm pulling out Doodlebugs shape sprinkles in Midnight Magic. And I'm using my pen blade. I'm going to put 3 of them down. So just easy stuff. And, you know, I'm going to stick those down just like that. There we go. So I'll have 3, you know, 1 beside the sentiment and 2, you know, so they're in a visual triangle, right? I got a phone ringing in the background, but ignore that, people, because I'm just going to finish this voiceover. There we go. Isn't that fun? So I think they turned out really, really well. They were easy, and they just ended up taking a little bit of time. And that is also, thank you so much for stopping by. Be sure to hop on over to the Jaded Blossom blog. Be inspired. The Jaded Blossom store to get your hands on these amazing products. Make sure to go and hop through the hop on the blog. You might have a chance at winning a stamp set of your choice. So thank you so much for watching, and we will see you soon in my next video. Bye, everyone.